Good morning, denizens of the Undernet, and welcome back to another exciting day of Let's Watch some great games of Netrunner on Jinteki.net. I hope you are having a wonderful day. I hope we can find some fun games to watch and get some nice analysis going on here, and in general, just enjoy some games. So, without further ado, let us gander at what we have. We'll just join the most recent joinable game here to watch. Looks like Criminal versus NBN. If we ever get in. Alright. So we have Leela versus Acme NBN. Leela we've gone over 100 times before, and we're very familiar with the archetype already. There are variants of the pieces of what Leela does. Looks like, for instance, this Leela runs pad tap, and, well, actually, this seems like quite a strange variant of Leela. Not completely atypical. We usually don't see the equivocation, but equivocation can force the corp to run more ice on R&D, which is not really what they want to do anyway, because they probably want to ice HQ to prevent the diversion of funds, but sometimes you see diversion of funds, sometimes you don't. The weird thing in this is that we see the Rizeki and the Akamatsu mem chip, but whatever, we'll get into that in just a moment. It looks like what has happened, we saw the trash of, hold on, let's just kind of catch up and see what's going on here. Okay, so Leela had a trash Louis because she didn't have enough credits to keep it out. It does seem like we have Death and Taxes from Acme out, and that's gonna give the corp a credit anytime a card is installed that they install, or any card is, let me rephrase that better. Anytime the runner installs or trashes a card, the corp gets a credit. It's a pretty nice agenda, or operation. What is it called? Current. It's a pretty nice current, but it does cost 2 credits to put out, so you want to make sure that you get a return on that investment. Let's take a look at the corp board state. Acme, of course, pretends like the runner has 1 tag on the outermost piece of ice on any server. We do see an upgrade on a HQ, which does end up being a Jinja, which is interesting. A lot of times, Acme wants to run shallow servers. That way they can take the most advantage of the corp. I'll get it right eventually. The runner having that fake tag on the outside. So the Jinja is interesting. We have a super server with 2 upgrades and a piece of ice here. And then, of course, they just scored a Bologna, gaining 5 credits back when they scored that. So, no tempo loss, really. Except for the clicks spent to score it. I do apologize. I'm recovering from a sore throat, so I do have some tea here. So if you hear me pause or you hear a clink, it's just my tea. Now, Leela responds here. This does not appear to be gang sign Leela. This appears to almost be kind of an honest Leela, a Leela that wants to make runs. We see Amakua, we see Boomerang. Ma isn't atypical in Leela. It does force the corp to trash yet another card in HQ. Well, not yet another, but it just further disrupts their board state, causing chaos. Tycoon is a very cheap Fractor to install, but it does give the corp 2 credits back anytime it's used. Gutenberg is a very high strength ice when it's on R&D. It has 6 strength for only 2 res, and it has a very high trace, but all it does is just give the runner a tag. So it is sort of meant to tax out the runner. Now, Leela makes a double run on R&D with Mobius, and this is kind of nice because this synergizes a little bit with Amakua. Amakua then gets 2 counters instead of 1. Now she goes ahead and takes a tag on one of these runs. Which one was it? I assume it was the second run. I didn't quite catch it. It's not really important. Leela just ended up taking one of the tags from one of those Gutenberg runs and then just clears it. We do see Keegan Lane. So Keegan Lane is pretty neat. You can trash it to remove 1 tag, and from the runner, and then you are allowed to trash one program. It's a very strong ability, but it requires that the runner is tagged. And I don't know if Acme's ID interacts with that. I don't think it does, because the runner doesn't have one tag to be removed. They're just treated as if they have one extra tag. So I don't think Keegan Lane can just fire willy-nilly, but on the off chance that Leela does get a tag, that is going to allow Acme to trash probably the Amakua, especially if the Amakua is fully charged. It is going to take 4 more runs before Amakua can break Gutenberg, and at that point it's pretty tasty to do a purge, although the Corp never really wants to do a purge, because of course that sets them back an entire turn. Leela drew twice and put money on Kadi, and it's deciding what to do with that last click. We don't have any new agendas here in server 2. We know that because there were the 2 upgrades there previously, so whatever those 2 cards are, they're upgrades. Probably one of them you have to think is a Jinja Grid, maybe? It's strange though, I don't know what this Acme's trying to do with the Jinja Grid. They have a ton of money though. Perhaps the other is a Keegan Lane. We do see an install in advance in the server, and then another piece of ice on that remote. Well, that's interesting. Death and Taxes also triggers when daily cast is trashed, when it runs out of credits. Okay, so the class act is put down. That's going to allow 4 draws at the end of Leela's turn, and then she's going to, of course, be able to filter out her draws as the game goes on. It is revealed the mystery card in server 2 was just an NGO front, so it's clicked up again and then taken for the full 8 credits. A new card is placed in the server, no advancement tokens put on it, and the Corp ends their turn 4 in HQ. Now we do see the falsified credentials. They're going to S upgrade. And wow, interesting. It is indeed another upgrade in server 2. I believe they chose, I mean, you'd have to assume they chose the outside card, the card that was just placed in server 2. It's a little hard to tell in Jinteki.net, but the red herring is obviously meant to just waste the runner's time, and Leela is rewarded for guessing the correct, well, wait a minute, no, red herrings is an asset, right? No, it is an upgrade. Okay. So she makes a run on archives, makes another run on archives, and now she's going to Mobius R&D. Very smart, because the Amakua is going to have 6 counters. She runs into another Gutenberg, but she's going to break both these Gutenbergs for 1 credit each. That's very nice. And in addition, she's going to make that Mobius run. So Mobius, I didn't go into it earlier, but Mobius lets you run R&D twice. And the second time you run R&D, you get 4 credits if the run is successful. So essentially, she's going to access R&D twice, not lose any money off of it because she's getting the Mobius credits back from the 2 credits to break Gutenberg twice. In addition, is going to get to put 2 more counters on Amakua. Now, the 2 counters on Amakua aren't totally relevant, mostly because there aren't really going to be that many pieces of ice that... Well, no, that's not true. There actually are going to be pieces of ice that Acme uses that have 8 strength. Data Ward. That monster has 8 string, and now Leela can break it for 4 credits. Or is it 3 credits? Can't remember if Data Ward has 3 or 4 subroutines. It's pretty gross, though. I think it's 4. It's crazy that an 8 strength Amakua can break Data Ward for 7 credits, because you have to think you have to pay 3 credits... 3 credits to avoid the tag, and then 4 credits for all of the subroutines. It's insane how good Data Ward is in Acme. Regardless, we are back to the runner's side of things, and she has to decide how she wants to handle this. Does do a bravado run, very nice. Gutenberg is R&D is a very good server to bravado run with these 2 Gutenbergs. It's going to cost Leela 2 credits to get in, but she's going to get 8 credits back for the bravado run. Sans the 3 credits that bravado costs, so she's essentially paying 5 credits to gain 8 and make a run. She does steal the SSL. Gets to choose something to bounce. Bounce is one of the upgrades in Server 2. I don't know if I agree with that. I think she should probably have bounced the ice because it's going to force the Corp to spend a little bit more money. But the Corp has 35 credits, so never mind. Maybe that's fine. And maybe she wants to access the upgrade in HQ at some point. I'm not really sure. It also gives her a chance to trash it because of the Maw triggers. Something I haven't been mentioning, but Maw is going to... Anytime she accesses a card in R&D and doesn't trash or steal it, she does get to Maw card in HQ. So we see a new card in Server 2, and a new card in... new ice on R&D. And then a click for a credit, which seems odd. It seems like an odd stalling tactic. I'm not entirely certain what Acme's trying to do here. Now, Leela has tons of money. They both have tons of money, but it's more to the detriment of the Corp. Usually the Corp doesn't want to be tied with money on the runner, because it's usually better for the runner in situations where they match money. Because it essentially means that if Acme was running any kind of hard-hitting news strategies, the runner can play safely around it. Although I don't think this Acme is running hard-hitting news, would be my guess. Alright, so the Corp does spend 3 clicks to clear virus counters. So Amaku has been reset back to 0. But at this point, Leela is ready to go. In fact, she goes ahead and trashes her Amakua on the install? But why? She didn't need to. Oh, okay. I completely missed this interaction. Okay, so this was actually really smart on Acme. I totally forgot. IP block gives the runner a tag if they run into IP block with an AI installed. Amakua is an AI, so that was actually a really nifty interaction that Acme had there. Keegan Lane definitely would have fired because IP block would have immediately given Leela a tag the moment she encounters it with Amakua installed. So she decides to install Amina. It's going to be her code gate breaker and forces the Corp to lose 1 credit the first time it's used to break all the subroutines on a piece of ice, I believe. Let me just read that real quick. Yep. And overwrites Amakua, so basically removing that interaction. Goes ahead and trashes the Keegan Lane. I don't know if you need to trash the Keegan Lane after that, but whatever, that's what she decided. She runs HQ twice. She's handing over 2 credits every time she breaks IP block because of Tycoon, which is a little annoying. What did she access? She accesses the All-Seeing Eye. What did she access on the first run? I'm not really sure. Oh, scarcity of resources. And then the Maw forced a trash on HQ. Right, the Corp responding to Leela's now ease of access into HQ. They do ice HQ with another piece of ice. They have so much money at this point. 52 credits. Money is no longer an issue for the Corp. So it honestly comes down to strategy. Some Corps can have all the money in the world and they still can't win just because their ice or their cards don't interact in a way that prevents the runner from doing what they want to do. However, Leela, this is an honest Leela deck. It doesn't run Gang Sign, it doesn't sit back and play not runner. And because of that, Leela actually needs money, and a lot of the money that she's been getting has been coming from Cuddy. Cuddy can only do so much. And so 13 credits is nice, but it's not going to be enough to repeatedly break into locations without dipping down pretty low on credits and preventing maybe a remote run. The Sure Gamble is going to help with that. Now, what's interesting is you would assume, because the Corp hasn't been scoring agendas, you have to assume that Acme has agendas in HQ. And that's why Leela was running HQ. It's probably why Acme iced HQ. We know that these cards here in Server 2 are Very likely all upgrades. Technically, this third card here could be the weirdest bait out ever, and it's actually an agenda. But more than likely, all of these cards in Server 2 are all upgrades. You'd have to think Keegan Lane is probably one of them. I don't know why Acme has Ginger Grid. It almost seems like a mistake. What have they done with this Ginger Grid? And if one of these cards in Server 2 is Ginger Grid, why was Ginger Grid ever used at all? I mean, they could just be looking at this and saying, I have so much money it doesn't matter, I can just manually install things, but Ginger still saves you the click of installing ice. At any rate, we do see a lot of ice on these servers, and the Corp is probably fully capable of rezzing all of them. So Leela can't really play around with forcing, quotes, the Corp to spend money because they don't really care at this point, would be my guess. Goes back over to Leela after an install on archives and another new card on the remote. Acme's probably looking to score out one of their agendas they so clearly have to have in HQ. Okay, and here's the concede, which is odd. Acme apologizes. Oh, alright. So unfortunately, Acme had to leave. Yeah, because otherwise that doesn't seem like a game-losing move. Or this doesn't seem like the checkmate move, you know, the bravado on HQ, with only 3 points scored on both sides. Fortunately, we don't get to see the conclusion of this game. But what can we analyze here? I think we can definitely consider that Jinja City Grid really didn't do anything for the Corp. Now, whether there was another strategy going on here that involved the Jinja, I don't know. It didn't seem to be that useful, though, especially because Acme wants the Corp to, or wants the runner to run the outermost piece of ice as many times as they can force them. So oftentimes they'll even trash their own ice, or have ice that trashes itself so that it constantly forces the runner to encounter the outside piece of ice during a run. Acme really didn't get anything out of their ID ability in this game, except it forced Leela to break the IP block, but Acme's ID doesn't interact with Gutenberg in any meaningful way. So I'm really surprised we didn't see anything like the Data Ward or the Pachinko, the, not Endless Eula, what's the other one? It's the one that makes you lose all of your money. But in spite of all that, it's a trap ice. I wish I remembered the name. Something like Universal Agreement or Hidden License or something like that. Anyway, if the runner is tagged, it forces the runner to lose all their money, and it's a trap ice, so it can only be broken with AI. So Leela would have been fine with the Amakua, but that interaction with Keegan Lane was super clever. The IP block and the Keegan Lane behind it stops any kind of Amakua play. And you have to assume Amakua is going to be the most common AI icebreaker these days. Has been for like a year at least, maybe 2. And then that is going to be your out, so to say, against Amakua plays. Because once Amakua hits the table, you can't really use that ice that makes the runner lose all their money, because they'll just break it with Amakua in most cases, unless their counters are low. But the Keegan Lane puts a stop to that. At any rate, we also, well, before we move on, let's very quickly take a look at the Leela deck. Leela deck is an honest Leela deck. It doesn't just sit back with Gang Sign and do nothing. She was building up those turning wheel counters and still had enough money through cards like Bravado and Mobius to keep up a little bit of pressure. Was not the most effective Leela deck I've ever seen, but I don't mind that, I don't think, because it was nice to see a Leela deck that was actually trying to do something. And Bravado is a really neat card. It definitely helps Crim out. It's kind of like a, I don't want to call it a Temujin contract, because it's not a Temujin contract, but it's definitely a, hey, make a run on a server and recoup some of the loss of the money you spent to get in, and or maybe make a little bit of money, at any rate. Alright, we'll join a new game here. We've got Adam running the standard directives versus Argus Security. Argus is going to force Adam to take a tag or suffer 2 meat damage anytime they score an agenda. Can be a little tricky. Slow start to the game. Players are deciding to keep their hands. No mulligans. Adam's going to want to hit HQ, which is pretty normal because of the double access. However, the ice on R&D tells you one of two things. It tells you that there are no agendas in HQ, or it tells you that Argus wants Adam to hit an agenda, possibly for the punitive plays, or even the hard-hitting news. Now, this is interesting. I don't see a lot of Adams running Peace in Our Time. Adam runs pretty influence tight. While the money in Adam is nice, because he tends to struggle with finances early on, the influence is usually a factor, even though Peace in Our Time is only 1 influence. But it is kind of nice to see it. We also see a buffer drive, which is also 1 influence. Buffer drive is pretty nice these days in Adam. It's a 3-cost piece of hardware, so it does synergize pretty well with his emergent creativity. It lowers the... Oh no, I'm thinking of Devil Charm. Yeah, buffer drive lets you recur one of your lost cards from net damage or the like. We'll see. We'll have to see how he uses that. He also gets to recur a logic bomb with it and put it on the top of his deck, I believe. Add 1 card from the heap to the top of your stack. Yeah, that's usually what I see people using buffer drive with these days. It's kind of like a replacement for Reclaim, if you're familiar with Reclaim. If not, we don't have the time to go into it quite this second, but yeah. Because it recurs your logic bomb and your programs. We also see Corporate Defector, so Adam is going to see a lot of cards here. Anytime the Corp manually draws a card with a click, Adam's going to get to see it. We see Day of the Cast, we see Conti. This is actually a pretty strong setup so far. This is going to be a very strong financial setup for Adam. Now, Argus isn't really doing anything meaningful, and this is probably going to hurt them. And I don't mean that like they're making bad choices. I mean, they might not have the cards to do anything meaningful. This is really scary. This is really scary from Adam. Adam has a ton of money, and they're gonna get a ton of money, and they know what cards the Corp is drawing. Look, Corporate Defector just revealed hard-hitting news, so Adam knows it's a hard-hitting news Argus. Argus doesn't have the money right now to threaten hard-hitting news. They even played Too Big to Fail, which gave Adam a bad publicity. Probably because their whole plan was to run the hard-hitting news angle, so they don't care about the bad publicity. But in spite of all that, they're only 7 credits up. And then when the runner's turn is going to begin, that difference is only going to be 3 credits, because it's Day of the Casts. So we see a lot of crazy strong finances coming out of our runner, but no breakers yet. Here's the emergent creativity. He'll probably pull out a breaker of some kind. Do you see Bogalter? He's going to run Archives to see the top card of R&D, as well as hitting 2 face downs, which are probably nothing. Oh, no, it's an agenda. Project Atlas in Archive. That's strange. So I think at that point you have to conclude that Argus is agenda flooded. That's why they haven't built a remote. That's why they're not scoring anything. They can't. And that's why they double iced HQ. Because they're just so agenda flooded right now. And that's why they were that's why they were forced to give Adam 5 turns of setup without doing anything really meaningful. Now we do see the economic warfare into hard-hitting news, but this isn't really that bad of a thing. This is going to force Adam to take 8 tags, but he can just remove them. I mean, sure, he doesn't want to, but it's also going to cost Argus a pretty penny, costing Argus a total of 13 credits to do that. Wow. The response is misdirection. The response is emergent creativity into misdirection. And so very cheaply, Adam just removed all their tags. And now the credit deficit that might have been 3 to 14 is now 11 to 14. It's not looking good for Argus. An upgrade on archives. What would that be? A Prisec? It's probably a Prisec. So you have to assume that the runner might take a tag and a meat damage. 2 face downs go in archives. I don't know what Argus is trying to do here. We see high profile target in the bin. So it looks like it is just a kill deck. Yeah, there's the Prisec. And that's what the court pays 2 credits, yeah, to give a tag and a meat damage. Interesting. So weird. So it looks like Adam is running hunting grounds. And he decided to buffer drive. Oh no, of course. Buffer drive, you don't have to trash it. You don't have to remove it from the game to just use its innate ability. So because he took that meat damage, he just added the card to the bottom of his stack because of buffer drive. Okay, finally we see a server, but it just feels too little too late. Argus has almost nothing to show for this interaction. He's tied on credits with the runner. But not really when you consider Cody Joan money. We see a new server. Double advancement in the server to score a hostile takeover. So he's on the board, he's got a point. But now Adam has 2 bad pub. We see the film critic, which is going to turn off any kind of punitive play, although I don't think this Argus runs punitive. And dumping more money on Cody. And there's our logic bomb. Yeah, this game's over. Once the logic bombs hit the table, Argus can't even negotiate unbreachable servers. At this point, Adam's just drawing through his deck and looking for his other 2 breakers. He's used 2 emergent creativities, so he's only got 1 left, but he doesn't really need them. There's the second hostile takeover. In a run, Adam's going to have 3 bad pub credits to spend. The world is his oyster at this point. Another logic bomb hits the table. We're just kind of waiting for the end here. I don't know. Okay, maybe we shouldn't be so pessimistic. Let's look at things from Argus's viewpoint. What could Argus possibly do to win this? He does have a decent amount of money. 26 credits isn't nothing. But he's got very little ice. Got 2 cards down here. Now this mystery card in server 4 could be a Project Atlas. The naked install on the Project Atlas would be pretty funny. But doesn't look like it, or else he would have scored it. We see another naked install on server 5. I would really think that that server 5 card is an agenda, because the server 4 card might have been him just testing the waters, seeing if Adam would have checked the remote, and now that he hasn't, he's going to try for the naked install. Yep, and Adam's going to call him out on it. He's going to dirty laundry server 5. Oh, it's just a Rashida. Yeah, that makes a certain amount of sense. So Adam dirty launders both remotes, knowing full well that he has plenty of money. Both of those are Rashidas. It's almost like Argus wanted Adam to run there. And that's why they didn't trigger the Rashidas. Or at least the first Rashida. He had plenty of time to do so. But it doesn't cost Adam any money to trash those Rashidas due to the bad pub. Interesting. We see an advance on the card in server 1. That card's been there for quite some time. Is it a bait? Adam decides to draw Emergent Creativity out, probably the next breaker. Well, like a paperclip, or... Still haven't seen the Code Gate breaker. Okay, Corroder. Reason for Corroder is probably because he spent influence in a lot of other places. 3 influence in Peace in Our Time, 3 influence on Deuces Wild. I would assume 3 influence on Buffer Drive, so that's 9 influence already. Film Critic, you probably run 1 or 2 of those, so that's another 2 influence. But Armed Intimidation was the card in server 1. Adam didn't contest it, which I'm not sure I agree with. He had the logic bombs to do it. So now Adam has to decide whether he wants to take 5 meat damage or 2 tags. Looks like he decided to take the 2 tags. Now he's going to run HQ. Revealing Winchester, which is a new Wayland ice. So it's got 2 traces, and while it's on HQ, it gains another trace that ends the run. Otherwise, the 2 traces are Trash a Program and Trash a Hardware. Another Winchester. The res cost is 4 for 4. Altogether, doesn't seem too bad to break. I don't know if Winchester is a good piece of ice. It wouldn't be great against anyone with Link, that's for sure. But then again, all trace ice is bad against anyone with Link. Price tag is the upgrade on HQ. Adam gets into this server relatively cheaply, and that's largely because of the bad publicity, plus the fact he's getting 2 credits back on his first Bugalter break. Access to 2 cards from HQ. First one is a global food initiative. He decides to take a tag from that, accesses another global food initiative, and also takes a tag. Probably because he can just misdirection it all the way. It will cost him 2 clicks to do so. Access to price tag takes yet another tag. This was very smart. Adam decided not to shake the tags because he knew if he just builds up a bunch of tags, he can remove them all at once. Does run R&D because he saw R&D. It's very likely an agenda. Hits the Data Raven. Goes ahead and takes another tag. Breaks it with Bugalter. And this is probably game. Yeah. Accesses the final agenda on R&D. So overall, what happened here? Argus had a fairly standard deck. Nothing fancy here. Build up more money than the Corp. I'll get it right one day. Build up more money than the runner. Then do things like economic warfare, hard-hitting news, and then win with the high-profile target. I don't think this Argus deck ever plans on winning through scoring out their agendas. I think they almost always try to win through meat damage. But because Adam was able to build up such a huge economic lead in the beginning of the game, Argus wasn't able to leverage hard-hitting news. And the misdirection just clinched it. The misdirection turned it off entirely. Yeah, I think maybe if the card draw was in a different order. Well, I say that. Except look at Adam's deck. Look at all of this. Look at all these things in the bin. All of this is money. Except for the Earthrise hotels. But like, Peace in Our Time gets some money. Shargamble gets some money. Deuces Wild doesn't really cost anything. It gets you draw. Earthrise does cost you something, but gets you draw. Emergent Creativity discounts things. Daily Casts. This guy has a lot of money in his Adam deck. And it works for him. think this deck probably struggles in the long game, which is likely why he runs the multi-threaders. I mean, most Atom decks run multi-threaders, but the multi-threaders are going to be very important to this Atom deck, because once his logic bombs are gone, now he can recur them with buffer drive, but buffer drive is going to cost 3 credits every time he installs it. Once his logic bombs are gone, his only real true form of recurring cash is the Kadi. But yeah, I could easily see why this Atom deck works. Because you boost through your economy in the early parts of the game with event cards and data casts. And then you rely on Kadi and Logic Bomb buffer drive recursion. At any rate, we'll jump into a new one here. Oh, apparently I don't have my laptop plugged in. One moment. Okay, let's take a look here at what appears to be Criminal Geist versus Spark NBN. Spark, of course, is going to be very annoying with those advertisements, forcing the loss of a single credit on every advertisement res on each turn. Apologies. The first advertisement res on each turn, not every. And Geist, of course, is just playing his normal trash can style. Does not seem to be the OK Boomer deck we looked at a week ago. Seems to be a more standard Geist, running Paragon, Pad Tap, and of course Spy Camera. We're a couple turns in, looks like we're bidding turn 3. And we see Geist down to a single credit. Still getting those spy cams. What's really hurting Geist right now is there are no tech traders on the table. He jumps down to 0 credits. That's certainly an option. It's not a great option, but it means that if Spark decides to res any more advertisements, he can't lose money. What do we have in the bin here for Spark? Double launch campaign and an IPO. So he's only forced Geist to lose 2 credits so far. 3 pieces of ice, no ice protecting archives, but why would you need it? Double draw from Geist. He's looking for something. I think what he needs to look for is clicking for credits. Because even to play the first tech trader, he needs 2 credits. It does seem like he used a pad tap, and then Spark went ahead and trashed it. Now he overdraws and has to pitch a falsified credentials, which kind of sucks. Falsified credentials only cost 1 credit to use. You would assume he would want to hold on to that and use it to, like in this situation, right? Well, I guess he can't use it now. So Spark goes ahead and reses reversed accounts, and I think the reason they did that was because they wanted to prevent falsified credentials from even being used. Now, the fact that Geist tossed a falsified credentials might mean that this guy just didn't make a very good play and tossed it. It could also be a tell that he had 2 falsified credentials in hand, and so he tossed one of them and kept the other. So Spark, reading into that, pre-reses the reversed accounts, making it so that Geist cannot falsified credentials it to get any money. It costs 3 credits to trash, let alone however much money it would cost to get through the ice. It's almost at this point that Spark is taunting Geist, saying, look, I can make you lose 4 credits anytime I want. What are you going to do to stop it? Finally, we see the first tech trader. Oh, tech trader is only 1 credit. For some reason, I thought tech trader cost 2 credits to install. So yeah, all of that draw that he was doing then was probably him looking for the tech trader. And here's a good play. He makes a run, because this is probably what he should have done last turn. Paragon lets him get a credit per run, per the first run, and look at the top card of his stack and put it on the bottom if he wants. That's going to both get him money and let him filter. He decides to just take another credit. He did pop one of the spy cameras and looked at R&D. Decided either he didn't want to try to go after the card in R&D, or probably more likely just thought that he couldn't get in. Spark tries to put a stop to that by icing archives. So no more free Paragon runs. And then draws 2 cards. So again, Geist kind of doesn't want to get a bunch of money right now, because Spark will just advance reversed accounts and then pop it to force Geist to lose, like 8 credits. Or he could even double advance it and force Geist to lose 12 credits. Although more than likely 12 credits would be overkill for whatever amount of money Geist could get in one turn. So Geist kind of already knows he's in anywhere between an 8 to 12 credit deficit that he has to somehow pull himself out of. It's pretty common for Spark. Spark, of course, tends to run strategies that make the runner poor. Reversed accounts is by no means a mandatory include, but this definitely plays into the Spark style. He decides to go ahead and Geist is trying to play the game on a low credit count. And he can kind of do that, because a lot of the ways he gets into servers don't cost him any money once they're installed. Things like Gabali and Kongamato. I think that's what it is. Kongamato. Decides to Inside Job HQ. This could be a good read. He's saying, I bet you have agendas in HQ because you haven't scored or installed anything. So the Inside Job is, of course, going to prevent whatever the nice is on HQ from firing, so Spark doesn't even bother rezzing it. Nice! Okay, so he gets into HQ, gets a credit from Paragon, but sees a Degree Mill. Degree Mill is going to force him to shuffle 2 cards back into the stack. Or is it shuffle or is it place on the bottom? It's shuffle. So he has to decide what 2 cards he shuffles in, and yeah, unsurprisingly, he shuffles Gabali and Kongamato back into his deck. And I think he's happy with this. He's 3 points up now. Spark now doesn't have the option of scoring an agenda like that. And he's keeping his credits low. So even though that reversed accounts is on the table taunting him, he doesn't care. He's just saying, go ahead, keep that on the table. It's done you nothing so far. He's making a mockery of it, because essentially Spark just wasted a turn and a click on advancement. Sorry, a click to install, a click to advance on a card that has done nothing so far, and Geist ran away with 3 points already. So Geist is doing a very good job of keeping his cool and just playing it smart. Spark is going to get more money here from nannies and forces Geist to lose another credit. He's deciding what he wants to do. Oh, somebody disconnected. Looks like Geist disconnected on accident. Would be my guess. We'll wait here a moment to see if this resolves itself. In the meantime, let's see what could possibly be going on here. Actually, let me see if let me see here if I can just reconnect. Maybe that was the problem. No, it doesn't look like a problem on our end. We'll have to wait to see if Geist reconnects. In the meantime, let's take a look at what we've got. We have Falsified Credentials, Pad Tap, Spy Camera, and Inside Job. These aren't cards you necessarily see from Geist. A lot of times Geist just runs full-on trash can symbols. So you don't always see cards like Inside Job or Falsified Credentials or even Pad Tab, because none of those synergize with his ID. We haven't gotten to see what Spark's ice is. There are an assortment of advertisement ice these days, especially with the release of Gold Farmer. Wait, is Gold Farmer an advertisement? Maybe not. There's a card called Free to Play. I think that one's an advertisement, but I don't think Gold Farmer is an advertisement. We check on NDB. We might have to leave this game, unfortunately, which is a pity. was looking pretty good. Check Gold Farmer here real quick. No, Gold Farmer is not an advertisement. What about free to play? No, neither is free to play. I know they released. I thought they released. Oh, apparently Uprising really only released wall to wall recently, which I don't see Spark wanting to use because they really only benefit if there's only one rezzed asset. Oh, tiered subscription. Congratulations, CSR Chem. Never mind. Uprising did release a bunch of new advertisements. You would assume that the Spark deck was trying to run those. Unfortunately, the game isn't proceeding, so we're just going to go ahead and leave that and join a new one here. Sorry about that, guys. Unfortunately, I don't have any control over that. The games will end or continue outside of my power. We're going to run into a game where we see Anarch versus HB. Hoshiko Shiro, the new Anarch ID, a guy who at the Netrunner nights I go to bi-weekly likes to call her the dominant mode. What did he say? Dominant mode, introvert mode, or something like that. So right now she's in dominant mode, and then earlier when she was shy looking, she was in introvert mode. Hoshiko is a little complicated, so we'll go ahead and explain what she does. First off, her identity is digital, which, as far as I understand, there's only one other digital ID that I know of, and that is Apex. And I don't think she's digital when she's in her introvert mode. She does have a link, and I think that's supposed to be represented by the fact that she has... This is her alternate personality. Yeah, because here she's in natural mode. So she's supposed to be like this person who's a pop idol, but only when she's a star, and then... I don't know. I don't know her story. I didn't actually read it on Issei. Regardless, when she's in introvert mode, she has when your turn ends, if you access at least one card this turn, gain 2 credits and flip the ID. And then the other side, it says when your turn begins... gain a credit or lose a credit. I think you get a draw. I should really know this one. I'm sorry. This is kind of a new card, so let me just figure this one out. Yeah, when your turn begins, draw 1 card and lose 1 credit. And then if you didn't access at least 1 card, you flip back into introvert mode. So essentially she kind of gains a credit and a draw every other turn, sort of. So she kind of wants to run this every other turn motif, where she runs when she's in introvert mode, and then when she's in dominant mode, she doesn't want to run, so she can flip back into introvert mode and stop losing the money. Although arguably she essentially just has a drug dealer installed when she's in dominant mode, so it's not the worst thing in the world. You're constantly getting that draw, but you're losing 1 credit and you get 1 link in the exchange, as you see here. Alright, let's start analyzing the game itself. We have Asa group. Asa gets to install a card in or protecting. Is it protecting? Yes. The first time you install a card each turn, you may install an additional non-agenda card from HQ in or protecting the server. So a lot of times what people do with Asa is they go hyper upgrades. Since Ice tends to be a little more expensive if you want to install, although not always, depends. Depends on the Asa deck. Some Asa decks run horizontal and do use that extra free install to install Ice in the server. We'll just have to see what Asa wants to do here. So we do see the Asa install. something in server 4 and then ice protecting it. Meanwhile, on the runner side of things, we do see Keiko. First time you spend credits from a companion, you gain a credit back. Pretty neat ID, just kind of feeds into that whole drip econ mentality. It's not super powerful or anything, but combined with all of the companions, if Hoshiko has them all out, can be pretty powerful. Liberated accounts, of course, an Anarch standard. Thimble rig rezzed on the table with fully operational to resolve gaining 3 credits? That seems kind of weird. I guess he needed the money. Tranquility Grid, the first time each turn you install a card in the server, gain 2 credits or draw 1 card. They decide to gain 2 credits with that. Hoshiko goes straight on for a run into R&D after taking a little bit of money from Lib account. Runs into a drafter, which is a little bit like Architect. We can, but not really. I mean, it's kind of like Architect. It's kind of like a worse version of Architect, really. In fact, I don't know why you would run Drafter instead of Architect. It's been a while since I've seen... Did Architect rotate out? Hold on. No, it's a Lunar. Okay, so I guess technically Architect doesn't pull things from the bin. It's also 1 credit more to res. So Drafter is at least different. Anyway, we saw that run on R&D revealed a daily business show, which Hoshiko went ahead and trashed. The mystery card in the server turned out to be a remote enforcement agenda, which HB now scores, and is going to get to install a piece of ice anywhere and res it for free, I believe. Yeah, you res it for free, but you still have to pay the install cost. Goes ahead and installs it on the super remote. Using the ASA trigger. Oh, that's pretty neat. Because technically that triggers the ASA condition. So it installs a new non-agenda card in server 4. So you have to assume, not assume, using logic that must be an upgrade. And the Fairchild is res completely for free. That's a pretty tough piece of ice to get through. Also gained 2 credits, I'm assuming, from the Tranquility home grid on the... That's some good synergy. 2 credits because of the installation from remote reinforcement due to Tranquility home grid. Hoshiko doesn't have much of a response. She installs a Devil Charm and a Earthrise. Still seems to be setting up very low on credits, 4 credits. Meanwhile, Asa continues to just install things, uses fully operational to draw 2 cards, gain a net of 3 credits, and reveals nanoteching, using that to gain an additional 2 credits. So Ace is sitting pretty at 14 credits and 2 points. Hoshiko runs HQ, hitting a Hagen. That's going to be rough. She's going to lose her, what is it called? Data Sucker. Because Hagen, of course, will trash any non-icebreaker program. More or less. I mean, technically it could trash an AI breaker. It's not going to trash your main 3, though, the Decoder, Killer, Refractor. Apologies. Finally, we see our first companion hit the table in Trickster Taka. Thimble Rig, meanwhile, is just swapping things around anywhere Asa pleases. Double advance on the... Wait, what? Double advance on the upgrade. Because that was installed through Ace's ability. So, what? That's a remote Biovault? That's an upgrade, right? Second companion hits the table, runs on R&D. Tempting the Corp to show their hand. As far as what ice that is tier. They dropped to 0 credits. It's fully res a tier. Now the runner can break any subroutine on tier by spending a click, but each time they do, the Corp gets another click on their next turn. Hoshiko decides to break the trash 1 installed runner card, which means that she's going to take 2 brain damage and end the run. That's rough. Not really any good choices there. 2 brain damage is going to be annoying, but probably the least detrimental over allowing the Corp to trash 1 of her cards. She's already behind in setup as it is. So losing 1 of her installed cards would just slow her down even more. Now on the bright side, the Corp is at 0 credits. The problem is that they have this nanoteching matrix, which is going to help them bounce back up. And they have another click. Ugh, even more disgusting. That was an NGO front. Right. I had assumed that it wasn't an asset. I had assumed it was an upgrade, but that is technically incorrect because ASA Trigger can install an asset, and NGO front can definitely be advanced. So now we see an honest install in server 4 with a double advance. It's probably an agenda. There's almost no reason why it wouldn't be. There's no way Hoshiko's getting into this server. Hoshiko draws 2 from Earthrise, getting those drip credits from Taka and Miami. But it's not really enough. You could take the credits on those companions and just hand them to Hoshiko, and she wouldn't really have a good answer to any of this. Decides to run the 1 final unresed ice server. Asa just goes ahead and lets them come in. She trashes the nanotech etching, but it's not really going to get her much. It gives the Corp 2 credits and it sets her back. She double clicks for 2 credits. I think she's kind of floundering at this point. Installs the Amakua, but it's just too little too late. And the Amakua is nice, but she needed it like 3 turns ago. Because she can run archives and charge it up, but this is most definitely an agenda. Like, Asa has no reason not to install an agenda in there and score it. So Asa goes ahead and installs a card in archives, and the reason for that is because now Hoshiko really can't charge up Amakua. Reses the nanoteching after an install and goes ahead and clicks it for 2 credits, delaying what I'm assuming is the scoring of this agenda, because again, Asa knows Hoshiko can't get in there. There's no way she can break the Fairchild. And here's the triple advance and the score on Global Food, which does put Asa on game point. Hoshiko has really nothing to do here. She has no real response. She trashes her Trickster Taka because it got too many credits. She draws and clicks up 2 credits and then makes a dirty laundry run? Where, though? Maybe on the nanoteching? Oh, no, she goes straight in through the Hagen. She says, go ahead, trash my Amakua? Wait, what? But she can't get through Hagen. I don't understand. Why did she do that? Did she do it literally just to prevent Miami from firing? So she used Miami's money to pay for dirty laundry. Oh, she has a paperclip in the bin. My mistake. So she goes ahead and breaks Hagen with Paperclip. And does gain a decent amount of money. Five credits, and of course gaining the 2 credits from her ID ability. From Dirty Laundry, her ID, and then spent for Dirty Laundry using the Mystic Miami credits. We see a new install in server 4. If that's an agenda, it's just game. Given the double advancement, it does kind of seem that way. And there's no way Hoshiko can get enough Omakua counters to break Fairchild, so she would have to somehow install Codegate and get enough money to break in. Asa uses Thimble Rig to put tier on this remote, further just basically saying you're not going to get in here, and here's the triple advance for the win. Yeah, Asa here was pretty just standard Asa. The Thimble Rig was kind of fun, and the inclusion of some new ice from the Uprising cycle. But overall, there wasn't anything particularly oppressive about this Asa group. I've seen some Asa group decks that just feel mean, and they put like 50 upgrades in one server, and so the runner runs into it and they just lose everything. This Asa group didn't do that. Had some interesting interactions with Tranquility Home Grid and the ID that lets you install new ice. Hoshiko just didn't seem to have much of a game plan. I think is what happened. Like, even looking at her cards here, I don't know what she was going for. I mean, it's not like these cards are garbage, right? I mean, Liberated Accounts is fairly standard in Anarch. Dirty Laundry is a good card. Earthrise Hotel, I don't like using Earthrise Hotel, but it's not a bad card. I prefer to get my draw through cheaper alternatives. But if you have the money to play Earthrise, it's certainly a powerful effect to get 6 cards over 3 turns. But I think how I would describe this is I look at these cards and I don't see any synergy. Like, I don't know what her overall strategy was. You could run these cards in any Anarch deck, and it wouldn't really change the way you play them. Hoshiko's ID, her ability, didn't synergize with this deck at all. And I think that probably explains kind of why she lost, because she didn't have a game plan. Her game plan was just to set up companions and run, kind of. And why is there a Devil Charm in this deck? What does it do? I mean, it would have let her get through Fairchild. That's okay. So maybe Devil Charm is just a nice little cantrip to have. But still. Guess, okay, I can see a little bit of synergy between Devil Charm and Omakua. Like, if someone knocks your Omakua counters down, or maybe if you're unsure of what the ice is when you run with a low-strength Omakua, like you only have 3 tokens, and you're like, well, it could be a Thimble Rig, which I can break for nothing, or it could be a Fairchild. So Devil Charm would get you out of jail free once. However, you have to use it when you encounter the piece of ice. Oh, that's different than approaching. Never mind, that still works. Because you approach it, then the corp reses it, and then you encounter it. But yeah, anyway, neither of these decks were particularly top tier. So I can't point fingers and say like, oh, well, this deck was really bad, oh, this deck was really good, or something. And let me be totally clear that that's not necessarily the point of Netrunner. The point of Netrunner is just to play to have fun. Not everyone, myself included, likes to play just the top tier decks. But that being said, I think this Hoshiko deck definitely needs some work. Okay, we're going to take a look at Crim versus NBN. Ooh, controlling the message. Been a little while since I've seen CTM. CTM is a very oppressive deck to play against. And then we have a gang sign, Ken? Alright, so we're a couple turns in. What turn are we in? Turn 3, you see the diversion of funds. The diversion of friends. Actually, that's probably what that card should be called when you play it in real life. Diversion of friends. Diversion of funds played on HQ, but it's not really the end of the world for controlling the message, because controlling the message has nannies, they have daily business show, they have the Mamba Temple. So they're not really that upset that they lost 5 credits. Not that it was a bad move for Ken. Of course, Ken should have done that, because it slows CTM down. Do you see the Amani Senai? Ugh. So, I'm sure you know already, but Amani Senai initiates a trace anytime an agenda is scored or stolen with a value equal to the advancement requirement of the agenda. So, like, oftentimes it's like trace 5, and if the runner doesn't fight it, the court gets to choose a card and add it back to the runner's grip from the board. Now, interestingly, I don't know why CTM decided to res tour guide. It did nothing. But Ken was able to inside job the tour guide and steal Remastered Edition, which is good. He fights the Amani Senai trace. And then easy marks? What? Why is this Ken running easy mark? I know Ken is kind of a tough ID to get to work, but you don't need to make it worse. I say that it actually is going to help him here, because Amani Senai fires again when Beal is scored. And it looks like he goes ahead and fights the trace again with that easy mark money. Ken runs R&D, pays 2 to trash CSR campaign, clicks for 2 credits and then runs again, stealing Project Beal. Pretty good. So in spite of being against an oppressive ID, in spite of having to fight this Amani Senai trace over and over again, he's making it work. He's taking advantage of the fact that CTM is leaving R&D wide open. And he took advantage earlier of the fact that HQ was wide open, used that diversion of funds, forced CTM to respond by icing HQ. Unfortunately, that did turn the hard-hitting news on, so we see an install hard-hitting news. Ken is left with 2 credits and 4 tags. So he has to ask himself, at this point, does he feel lucky? Because there's no way he's shaking these tags quick enough. Decides to bravado run HQ. That's probably very smart. It's going to get him some of the money back, and it's very unlikely that... Oh, well, just kidding. Right, forgot about the Mamba Temples. I was going to say, it's very unlikely that CTM would be able to res the ice on HQ, but with the double Mamba Temples, it's going to be... Oh, that's painful. Oh, I totally didn't realize this. Bravado still gets you the money, even if you fail the run. Holy crap, Bravado is good. So, Enigma lost Ken a credit, or a click, and ended the run, but he still got the Bravado money. And because of that, he was able to then, on his next turn, click up for a credit and then shake the rest of the tags. Now, he is down to 0 credits. Meanwhile, CTM is fully recovering from their financial losses by resing Maryland for free as well as G's for free. Has 4 credits now and probably will get a free click out of whatever they decide to do here. They could even just triple click for credits. Although perhaps there's something more valuable that they can do with their time. I'm not sure. I don't know what their hand is. They go ahead and install double advance. No, install single advance. Oh, goes in for the double advance. Hoping, perhaps, that Ken does not have an inside job. So Ken draws, clicks for 2 credits and inside job, server 6. Accessing Bologna. Unfortunately, the joke's on him. He doesn't have the 5 credits to steal it. Oh, that's a pity. Corp does now have the right to just triple click the Bologna, scoring it and then gaining 5 credits back, firing off Armani Senai at a trace 5. Ken cannot fight that trace. So NBN's going to get to choose something to add back to the runner's grip. He goes ahead and adds Gang Sign back to the runner's grip. Wait, Gang Sign? No, he adds HQ interface. That makes more sense. I was gonna say there's a Gang Sign already on the deck, or on the table. And then uses hard-hitting news. Kennen is pretty much at this point going to have to play Tag Me. He runs R&D after clicking for 2 credits. Shakes one of the tags. Now, I don't think he can do that anymore. I don't think he can fight the tags. You're at game point. Yeah, because all CTM has to do now is just that. Maybe he knew about the psychographics, though. I think he did run into the psychographics. So maybe I can put it this way. There might not have been anything Ken could have done there, but removing the tag doesn't change anything. He ran R&D looking for the last hopeful 3-pointer, maybe? At any rate, Ken still did play this pretty well. Like, unfortunately, we didn't really get to see much of Ken's deck, which is strange because it seemed to be a Gang Sign HQ interface deck, which is usually just stronger out of Leela. We didn't really get to see enough of Ken's cards to know if there was anything super fancy going on here. But CTM just did what CTM wants to do. This is a very standard CTM deck. Sans the Amani Senai. Amani Senai is not guaranteed to be in every CTM deck. But, yeah. Hard to fight CTM even with a decent deck. So, can't really be that surprised that Ken lost. Now, we do see what may be I didn't check the usernames. This might be the same Ken deck, so maybe we'll get to see it now against Asa. I also don't know if this was the same Asa we were watching earlier. Well, let's see how this plays out. Okay, so Ken taking advantage of their ID ability to play Dirty Laundry for 1 credit cheaper. He's going to net them 4 credits instead of 3, so it's a pretty good card. Doesn't see anything fancy on R&D. Installs Passport and Gravedigger? What? What the heck? My interest is piqued, Ken. Why do you have a Gravedigger in your deck? Do you run Maw? So, Gravedigger isn't a card you see all the time. It is whenever an installed Corp card is trashed, place 1 virus counter on Gravedigger, and then you can spend a click and a virus counter to trash 1 card from R&D and put it into HQ. Or, what am I saying? Archives. So he uses Contaminate to just immediately put cards on Gravedigger, puts 2 in Archives, and then runs Archive. Even if this is your strategy, which don't get me wrong, it's a fun strategy. Even if this is your strategy, I don't understand why you would do it like that. Why you would Contaminate, immediately trash 2 cards, and then run Archives. Usually when you put cards into Archives, you want to go for the super run. You want to go for the... What is he doing? He used Gravedigger to trash another card and makes another run. If he was doing this with Dirty Laundry, that would be one thing. Because then you could argue, well, he's doing it for the Dirty Laundry money and the access. But there was no need to make 2 runs in Archives. Fine, do your Contaminate combo. It's a bad combo, but fine. Like, that's your right as a player. If you want to pursue that strategy, it's a fun strategy. It's not a good strategy, but it's a fun strategy. But at least then have the patience to triple click, trash R&D, and then make 1 run in Archives, not 2. So anyway, Asa just goes ahead and installs their remote reinforcement, advances it, and then triple advances it, and installs and reses tier for free. So that's fun. That's something that Ken is going to have to deal with. Now, the real issue, of course, is that I don't think Ken is ever planning on contesting the remote anyway, and that's evidenced by their breaker choices. Their breaker choices here can only be used on centrals, passport, and breach. You have to assume he's also running alias. So he's just advertising that he's never going to run into the remote. So naturally, the Corp just installs a card in the server, advances it, and reses archives to prevent more Gravedigger shenanigans. Now we do see an embezzle on HQ, but the Corp has plenty of money to res whatever's on HQ. It is a sentry that can be... No, it can't be, because Alias is the killer. Ah, that's unlucky. So embezzle at least doesn't cost Ken any money to use, because normally it's, a single credit to play, but Ken gets a credit back when he plays run events, so that's something at least. I guess it forced the Corp to res a piece of ice for 4 credits. Not the end of the world. Can't be bypassed. Very good against Inside Job. Another advance. It is just an NGO front. Now that counts as a Corp card being trashed, so Gravedigger gets a counter, which is something. Now we see an install advance in server 1. We don't know what that is. Probably an agenda. I mean, that's a pretty safe bet. Of course, Ken can't really get in there to do anything about it. Oh, okay. So he does run the Bugalter. I guess that makes sense. Bugalter is probably just a better alias that can be used on any server. Then Diversion of Funds HQ. He is able to break guard because it is a sentry. He just pays 1 credit to do it, I believe. No, 2 credits. But he gets 2 credits back, so it's a net of 0. He plays Diversion of Funds for 2 clicks and 0 credits due to Ken's ability. So essentially for 0 credits and 2 clicks, he's going to gain 5 credits and make the Corp lose 5 credits. Good interaction, good play. But that is 1 Diversion of Funds down. Of course, Diversion of Funds being stronger early on before the Corp ices HQ. So Asa has lost their 5 credits, and they might have to think twice about whether or not they want to score whatever's in server 1, depending on what it is. Although, yeah, I still think you do score it. It's not putting them down to too many credits. Especially if it's another remote reinforcement, you could even install and res a piece of ice on R&D if you were really worried about it. Or, depending on what you have in HQ, you might have agendas in HQ, so you just go ahead and install and res a piece of ice on HQ and not care about R&D. He's not going to get through the tier anytime soon, though. Even with Bugalter, it's going to cost him 9 credits to get through. 9 credits up front, 7 credits total. However, he decides to double down on the super remote, installing and resing Fairchild for free. Paying the install cost of 2, but resing it for free. It's a very power play. Whatever gets installed in server 1 will never be contested by Ken now. Can never be contested by Ken. I mean, I suppose he could inside job Fairchild and then break tier normally with Bugalter. That still doesn't account for whatever this mystery piece of ice is. Ken Bravado's archives. Asa goes ahead and chooses not to res archives ice or can't. Either way, it makes sense to me. I mean, there's nothing in archives that's worth running anyway. I really feel... Okay, and again, I know I say this in every episode, but it's because I really want to be clear. I'm not trying to pick on anyone. People can play Netrunner any way they want, and you're not a bad person, right? None of my comments are meant to be comments about the person behind the computer, right? All of my comments are meant to be analysis. I'm not trying to attack anyone, and Netrunner is just a fun game. So even if you're not making the best choices in Netrunner, it doesn't matter. We're all just here to have fun. That being said, I really don't think this Ken knows what they're doing. Like, their strategy is all over the place. Like, they're obsessed with running archives. Because that third run on archives, just to see the single face down card. Now, it was a bravado run, so I can kind of understand where they were coming from. They were like, I just want the bravado money. And so that part of it I get. That part of it I do get. Because earlier I said, oh, if they dirty laundried archives, then it would be okay. So it is okay because they bravadoed archives, but I don't understand their obsession with the Gravedigger archive interaction. Okay, so we do see a high stakes job. Now this one's good. This is a good move because you have these breakers that very cheaply break central ice, and high stakes job is a very nice interaction with that. You're probably going to break into HQ pretty cost effectively. We do see an IP block res, so he's just going to be able to break that with, oh, not passport, breach. All he needs to do is pay, what, 4 credits to get in? It's not great. IP block is such an annoying piece of ice. But he does get 6 credits back for his trouble, so he makes 2 credits. Well, 7 because of his ID. So he comes out with a net of 3 credits. Gets to access a card on R&D. Not the worst thing in the world. Goes ahead and plays Freedom Through Equality. I guess he's hoping for the lucky fish. Runs HQ. Sees a thimble rig. That'll be easily broken by passport. Literally 1 credit. Guard, of course, breaks for a net of 0 credits. So he can get into HQ very, very cheaply. So this is a good move. It just sucks that Breach costs 4 credits to break an IP block. That's insane. Breach is supposed to be, like, cost efficient on centrals. But whatever. So using Thimblerig's ability, Asa then swaps tier onto HQ. That makes a certain amount of sense because unless Ken inside jobs the Fairchild, he cannot get through the Fairchild with his current setup. Ken sees fully operational in HQ. Doesn't really get anything out of that. We do see the gang sign for the access on HQ if Asa ever scores. However, if the card is a 3-pointer, it won't matter. Ken's not going to get to access anything if Asa just wins. The mystery card was a Global Food Initiative, or NGO Front. I always think of NGO Front as being food because it's got the farm. But no, it's a NGO Front, gains money off of it, has plenty of money to do what they need to do. Not infinite money, but 10 credits is more than enough to install a card in server 1 and, score it if that's what he needs to do. It doesn't look like he's going to. City sells an upgrade on HQ. Installs another card on R&D. He must not have any agendas, so he's looking to just keep things protected and looking to kind of stall for time while he waits to score whatever card he needs in this super server. You have to think he doesn't have an agenda in hand, though, now. Because if he did, he just would have installed it and gotten ready to win. Now, Drug Dealer comes down. Yeah, this is such a random deck. This feels like the decks I built in the first year of playing Netrunner. When I just saw neat cards and I just wanted to put cards in my deck. So Drug Dealer, of course, is going to lose your credit at the beginning of your turn, but then when the corpse turn begins, you draw a card. So it's good card draw, but it costs you a credit every turn. So you do have to play around it. It's not free, that's for sure. Okay, so the install double advance on the card and the remote from Asa. It's going to be game unless somehow Ken can get in. I think the best thing we can hope for is inside job into what? So he draws twice, trashes a card with Gravedigger, and then just runs archives. Probably the best he can do. He probably doesn't have inside job in hand. Well, no, what am I saying? He literally can't even get through the thimble rig. So even if he inside jobs Fairchild, it doesn't matter. So he draws, trashes it with Gravedigger, Axis is fully operational from archives. It's not going to matter, and then Ace is probably just going to score this and win. Interesting. So this Ken deck had no synergy with anything it was doing. It did have run events, so it was taking advantage of Ken's ID ability. It had high stakes job, bravado, diversion of funds, embezzle, dirty laundry. All of that is good. All of that is good to have in Ken. But the central only breakers are confusing because typically if you're running a strategy with central only breakers, you're running something that is so good on the central servers that it doesn't matter that you can't run the remotes. So oftentimes you'll see that in situations where people run Apocalypse. And maybe this Ken does run Apocalypse. Maybe we just didn't get to see it. Let's count his influence. 1 from Contaminate. 2 from Gravedigger. Yeah, so it's very possible this Ken was still running Apocalypse. In fact, you would almost kind of think he was. And that's why he went with the Gravedigger Contaminate combo, but even that just doesn't make sense to me. That's really the part that throws this whole all for a loop. So let's back up just a little bit. So we have good synergy on these run events, right? Good synergy on Ken's ID. It's taking advantage of what Ken wants to do. However, we have these remote-only breakers, which just screams to the corp, hey, your remote is... sorry, I said remote-only. Central-only breakers. It just screams to the corp that your remote is safe. And Ken really didn't apply that much pressure to the centrals. He did have that nice high-stakes job run, but that only made him 3 credits. That's partially just because IP block is disgusting to break with Breach, but still. He wasn't like en passanting, he wasn't apocalypsing, he wasn't DDoSing and then doing all other sort of weird things. He just kind of was installing random cards. Like, how does the gang sign synergize with this? We know this guy runs HQ interface, but it's almost like this really just does feel like a deck where somebody saw a bunch of cards they liked and thought, oh man, these cards are cool, I'm going to put them in my deck. And there's nothing wrong with that. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that that's not going to create a very good deck. Like, the Contaminate Gravedigger combo is so confusing to me. Why is this in this deck? Oh well. It's not fair for me to pick apart people's decks when I don't know how much, where they're coming from. But in general, yeah, I think that Ken deck needs to pick a direction and go. Okay, so we see Lat, our new Shaper ID, versus Meat Damage Wayland. First time runner encounters a piece of ice with at least 1 advancement token on it. Do 1 meat damage. Wayland Consortium is the name. Lat has a boomerang on a Res Kakugo. Finally! Finally someone is using boomerang correctly. Using it on res pieces of ice. Now Lat, of course, is going to get a card draw if he ends his turn with the same number of cards in hand as the corp. Looks like he's not going to get it this turn, but he does put down a Daily Cast to build up money. The corp has 2 hostile takeovers scored, which means that Lat is going to get 2 credits on every run for the rest of the game, unless somehow the corp removes it. Housekeeping. Right, housekeeping is kind of like Hacktivist Meeting, except it's for the corp. Anytime the runner installs a card, they must trash 1 card from their grip. They get to choose the card that's trashed. It's a pretty brutal current if you can't get rid of it as the runner. And it's early in the game. Now, it does cost 2 credits to use, so it does set the corp back a little bit on tempo. Lat goes ahead and Boomerang runs Kakugo. He's going to have to take a net damage for his trouble. Loses Super Corridor. Lat's Console, which gets him 2 credits if he also ends his turn with the same number of cards as the corp. It's kind of like a synergy between Lat and the Console. Runs R&D. What do they see? They see nothing, or nothing that they interacted with in a meaningful way. They go ahead and run the remote. Aket is rezzed. Aket is just an end the run barrier with a little lower strength than a static wall. So you have to compare it to static wall, right? So static wall is 3 to res and 3 strength. Aket, also a barrier, 3 to res, only 2 strength, also has end the run. The difference being, of course, that you get to place an advancement token on a card, an installed card. So that could be ice, it could be an agenda, it could be, anything that's installed. It also is one of those cards that gets something if it has 3 advancement tokens on it. It gets +3 strength, and the runner can only break one of the subroutines. It's a neat piece of ice. It looks like it does have 3 advancement tokens on it, though. I missed how that happened. Oh, it looks like it was put on by dedication ceremony. So that goes ahead and installs the artist, trashing a card from hand Kushik. They lost another Kushik. I didn't see how they lost that other Kushik, though. Regardless, card in the server by Wayland is double advanced. And the mass commercialization is going to make them a ton of money. 8 credits. Very nice. Lat still setting up, installs a Rozeki, using the artist to discard that by 1, I'm sure. No, why didn't they use artist? Oh, okay, because they were just... Oh, I see, they redid it. They fixed it. So, it uses artist to install Rozeki, trashes Flameout. That housekeeping is being super annoying right now. Oh, man! Alright. So, Lat pays the 2 credits to install Beth Killerain, which, Beth is pretty standard Shaper card. You almost should always run one of her in any Shaper deck, because she's just so universally good. But the double advanced card in the server was Contract Killer. Now, a lot of times Contract Killer is just used to do 2 meat damage to a runner and maybe go for a quick flatline out of nowhere if they only have 1 card in hand. Instead, Wayland uses the oft not used ability of Contract Killer, which allows you to trash a connection. So he just trashes Beth, setting Lat back even further. Installs 2 cards, 1 in the ice server and 1 naked. Then it goes back over to Lat. Lat runs through HQ, breaks ice wall, pretty cheap here. But doesn't hit anything important in HQ. In fact, he accesses another housekeeping. That must feel pretty demoralizing. Because here's the thing. Chameleon, he broke this with Chameleon. This is a Chameleon deck. Flameout gives that away. The idea is that you install Chameleon on Flameout, and then you don't have to trash it, because Chameleon is added back to the player's hand at the end of your turn, which is a horrible card to have against housekeeping, because essentially, Lat is just kind of screwed here. Because anytime he wants to install Chameleon, he has to trash a card because of housekeeping. He accessed another housekeeping in HQ, which means even if Lat scores an agenda and gets rid of this housekeeping, there's just going to be another one. Wayland goes ahead and reses Urban Renewal, which does 4 meat damage in 3 turns once you remove all the power counters. Lat recognizes that as a threat and sees that it's uniced and sees that he has plenty of money to run it, so he runs and trashes it. He's not going to get hard-hitting newsed. Wayland only has 8 credits, and this doesn't feel like a hard-hitting news deck. However, the card in server 3 did end up being Armed Intimidation. Oh no, that's Broad Daylight. Broad Daylight's a pretty neat card. Lets you do 2 meat damage per turn. And it gets counters equal to the amount of bad publicity you have. And you can take a bad publicity when you score it. So essentially, Lat's just kind of doomed here from this drip meat damage. It's pretty interesting. I really like this approach to Wayland. I feel like Wayland doesn't get to really take advantage of chip meat damage, right? They usually just either boom or high profile target. And I understand why that's a win condition. That needs to be a win condition, but it's not as exciting. But this drip meat damage that he's dealing to Lat is super cool. Now, I think Lat might have forgotten that when he encounters a piece of ice, because he just dies here, right? Wait, how did he draw another card? How did he draw 2 cards? Did he have 2 clicks left? I'm really confused. Where did that other card draw come from? I'm not sure. I think, hang on, let's see here. Oh, Chameleon got added back to his hand, of course. I don't know why Wayland didn't broad daylight him. Maybe it's because he wants Lat to install Chameleon. Anyway, so he drew up and Chameleon got added back to his hand. But now he's dead, right? He just ended his turn with 1 card. Now all Wayland does is broad daylights. Oh, he has more clicks. I'm terribly sorry, friends. Okay, so he draws up and grabs 2 more cards, which is a little confusing because he would have gotten the Lat draw if he had just left himself at 2 cards, so he probably should have taken a click there for credit. Paul's Cafe is kind of another piece of the whole Chameleon interaction. But the problem is that, again, it doesn't bypass the installation trigger. So even if Lat hosts cards on Paul's Cafe... So what Paul's Cafe does is you can host a card on it, spending a click, and then you can spend a credit to install one of the hosted cards. And the first time each turn you do that, it costs 1 less for each installed connection you have. So it's going to cost 1 less because of the artists. So the idea is, essentially, you can put the Chameleon on it, install it at no extra cost, at instant speed. But the advantage is you can install it whenever you want. Because you've hosted it, I don't believe it gets added back to your... Wait, does it? Is the text on Chameleon active even though it's hosted on Paul? I don't think it is, because that's the idea. You host it on Paul, so that way you only install it when you need to. Yeah, because he just ended his turn and Chameleon didn't get added back to his hand. Alright, so wall-to-wall is rezzed by Wayland, and because it's his only asset, he gets to resolve 3 of the effects on it. You can draw a card, gain a credit, put an advancement token on a piece of ice, or add the asset back to HQ. He gained a credit, drew a card, and placed an advancement token on the Archives ice. Lat, in response, hosts more cards on Paul's Cafe and is drawing up. I can't imagine what they're looking for, though. I don't know that Lat really has a response to anything that's happening here. Wayland still has those 3 wall-to-wall tokens and does have 3 bad publicity. The issue is, though, with Lat, it's not an issue about money. The fact of the matter is that Lat has been bleeding his HP this entire game. Largely just due to the unfavorable interaction between Chameleon and Housekeeping. And the fact that Lat's whole deck involves bouncing cards from the board back to their hand. Now, Wayland plays this new lockdown card. So lockdowns, I think, are a really fun idea. In fact, I really hope they replace currents completely one day. But they're essentially like super powerful one-turn currents. And I'm not very familiar with Argus Lockdown, so I am going to have to read it. When the runner makes a successful run on the server protected by ice due to meat damage. Interesting. So it's just another meat damage tax on top of all of the other meat damage that Wayland can do here. So yeah, Lat is just continuing to install things, but is that the right answer? I mean, I guess it's fine, kind of. Because housekeeping fires... Okay, so technically housekeeping only fires the first time. So I guess it's fine. He's going to lose that card anyway. Never mind. So he installs Cyber Trooper to loot. Pitches a card. He's going to run this server. He's going to lose 1 HP to Kakugo. 2 from Argus Crackdown. Now, if he installs Chameleon, he's going to get another card back. So he has 6 cards. He's losing 3. He's going to be fine. Even if this card here is a Kakugo, he's going to have enough cards in hand. So he loses another one because of Wayland's ID ability, but he's going to be fine. He'll live through this. He's using Chameleon to break all these because these are all just barriers. So he's free to do so. And Takobi is gaining counters. Takobi gives a piece of ice plus 3 strength, which is partially why it's so strong with the whole Chameleon interaction. His Chameleon already has plus 3 strength. And then Palangi, of course, lets you convert things into whatever you've used, whatever you've named for Chameleon. It's kind of the whole idea behind this archetype. I have seen it a couple times. Essentially, not out of Lat, though. I think it was used from someone else. Can't remember who it was. Was it Wu who used it? Regardless, the idea is that Chameleon, in interaction with Paul's Cafe, can break through things very cheaply, and then you use Takobi when you need it to lower the strength of something so that Chameleon can still break it. And then Palangi allows you to convert like this. Okay, so Formicary was shoved into the server. That is something Formicary can do. It can move in and intercept the runner when you res it. So Wayland forces it into here, into the server. But Lat just installs Palangi and is going to convert it into barrier, which is going to allow him to break it with Chameleon. Again, very cheaply, for 1 credit. Not sure why there's a delay, though. Also, the reason this works is I'm not sure. They're going to discuss something. We'll go over some other stuff. Oh, it looks like the interface is causing him problems. Alright, but anyway, also the reason this works very well is because Cyber Trooper Talut gives anything you install plus 2 strength for the remainder of the turn. So you don't even need to necessarily use Takobi, unless you're running into something like a Fairchild. Now, admittedly, there is a limitation to this. It does rely on your Palangis, because once your Palangis are out, you can't convert things anymore. And the strategy becomes a little more difficult to use. But overall, you can see here, there's even a Gordian Blade in the bin, which means that, you know, as a backup, under normal circumstances where Lat isn't taking a lot of meat damage, he could install the Gordian Blade. And so now suddenly Chameleon only has to cover 2 types instead of 3. So overall, if you're playing your cards correctly, this is a very strong strategy. In fact, this is kind of making me want to try it. Okay, so they redo the turn because for some reason Formicary screwed up the menus. So they're doing the run again. Same interaction as before, of course. Chameleon installed, gets 5 strength because of Talut. Takobi's getting counters for every fully broken ice. And Paul's Cafe giving that instant speed install Palangi whenever needed. And the SMC also can be a backup Palangi if you need it to be. Because there's only one in the bin. It's quite possible the last Palangi is in the stack. I wonder if there's an argument for using Simulchip with this strategy. To pull Palangis out of the bin. Well, the Simulchip is expensive. If, well, it's not completely expensive, but you have to trash a program to use it. No. Simulchip would work. You just trash one of your empty Palangis and then pull back a new one, right? But you would have had to have installed something earlier that turn anyway. Anyway, I'm going down the rabbit hole that is Shaper, which is all too easy to do. Regardless, Lat does successfully make the run. Accesses Broad Daylight, which is very good, because if Wayland had scored that, suddenly Wayland was going to be able to do 4 meat damage every turn. So he does install Double Advance the last hostile takeover. Lat hosts Chameleon on Paul's Cafe, draws 2 cards, draws a 3rd card. But we know that Wayland has another housekeeping. And that ultimately is the problem here. I think Lat's navigating this fairly well. He's doing what he can. It's tough though, because he just had to bleed so many cards to do this. The problem is there's the second housekeeping, and what does Lat do now? He probably has to change his focus to R&D or HQ. But every time he wants to run R&D, he has to lose 3 cards. 1 for the installation of Chameleon due to housekeeping, 1 for Kaku's net damage, and 1 for Wayland's ID ability. It's just tough. Like, this is just a bad matchup for this kind of Lat deck. He's going to run the Super Server. At least the lockdown isn't active. So he's not going to take 2 damage at the end of this. Installs his Chameleon, he has to pitch a card. And of course he's going to have to pitch another card when he passes Kakuga. And he's going to pitch a 3rd card when he passes Ice Wall. Or well, I think they had to errata the ID so it triggers when when the encounter with an advanced token ice ends. Regardless, if he actually wants into the server, he has to give up 3 cards. However, all of these except Formicary are barriers, so he is free to name barrier. Then he can Palangi the Formicary. And he can do all of this fairly cheaply. He does have 4 bad publicity to work with as well, so he does all this almost entirely free. And he accesses Urban Renewal, which would have done 4 meat damage eventually anyway, so he's kind of okay with that. He would have much rather hit an agenda, of course, but yeah. He does access... He accesses Prysec, which Wayland goes ahead and does a meat damage and gives the runner a tag. Now, if I was Wayland, I would trash maybe Paul's Cafe. I don't know. You might not even need to trash anything. So what Wayland does, he does go ahead and trash Paul's Cafe. But what he does is he also uses Broad Daylight to trash 2 cards in the runner's grip. He trashes Paul's Cafe. Lat's whole strategy is down the drain at this point, and even if it wasn't, he doesn't have enough cards really to contest anything that's going on. There's no way he can get into the server. It would cost him, at least 3 cards. Wayland installs a card in server 3. If it's an agenda, if it's a 3-2, he just wins. If it's a 4-2 or a 5-3, He wins next turn. He goes ahead and uses Broad Daylight, force Lat to lose yet another 2 cards, and plays the Argus Crackdown, and that's kind of it. Because now, in order to get into the server, Lat needs to pay 5 cards. I don't think he can do that. So instead, he's going to install Boomerang and probably make an R&D run. Or an HQ run, one or the other. He's targeting R&D. He diesels? I mean, this game's over, right? I guess he kind of just knows it's over, so he's not going to make the R&D run. There's the final wall-to-wall. Or not wall-to-wall, what's it called? Broad Daylight. Interesting. So overall, I really liked this Wayland deck. This Wayland deck is the first Wayland Consortium deck I've seen in a while that actually kept up the pressure of meat damage and made it real. And he did it by taking an insane amount of bad publicity, which I think is pretty cool. My favorite ID is Black Tree Jinteki. So this is a very kind of Black Tree Jinteki style. That being said, this matchup was very unfavorable for Lat. I can't give Lat any pointers here, like the deck any pointers, because what was Lat supposed to do? Like, the moment he sees this strategy, the moment he sees this concept of every time I install a card each turn, I have to trash something. Every time I run into a piece of ice, first time I run into a piece of ice, I have to trash something. And Kakugo is forcing me to trash. Well, I think I'm using the wrong words. You get the idea, though, right? On any turn that Wayland plays Argus Crackdown, Lat has to spend 5 cards to get anywhere in a 45 card deck. So you have to spend 1/9 of your deck to even contest something. Yeah, I don't think Lat really has much of a prayer for this. Would it be worth it in a Lat deck like this to bring along something like Feedback Filter? Is that still a card? They didn't remove that from the game, did they? Oh shoot, they did. It's a creation and control card. Wait, does that literally mean that Criminal is the only one that can prevent meat damage? I can't remember what the Crim card is called. It's a resource. That's pretty funny. Or not meat damage, net damage. Oh, well, wait, what am I saying? That's net damage. Net damage wouldn't help you protect against this. There's very few things that protect against meat damage. Yeah, I guess it's just a bad matchup for Lat. I don't think there's really any tweaks, any silver bullets you could put into your deck that would be worth it. Like, I don't know, maybe you put in a single copy of Guru Devinder or something, but even then, this Lat deck isn't designed to make money. It's designed to install Chameleon very cheaply and break things very cheaply. Yeah. Just, I guess that happens sometimes when you play card games. Sometimes you just have a bad matchup, and that's that. Alright. Going into Hoshiko Shiro versus Sports Metal. Hold on, sorry. Sports Metal! It's mandatory. And it is turn 2. Hoshiko is running HQ and R&D. Apparently doesn't see anything good. Installs Poemu. And Daily Casts. Pretty standard. Fortunately doesn't get anything out of her runs on R&D or HQ, but is setting up to get some money over time. Sports Metal, running quick and fast, says go ahead, come right on in to my central servers. I don't care. Jinja's, what are they, Jinja? They have to reveal it. Jinja's Cobra installs 3 cards in server 1. Hoshiko, meanwhile, goes ahead and runs HQ. And then doesn't see anything and just installs a daily cast. Preceded by a sure gamble. Now, unsurprisingly, we do see the double advance on the card here in the server. It is just a Hyperloop extension. Good for making a bit of cash back. But overall, not the end of the world for Hoshiko. Filtering her deck out with Street Peddler. See, another run on R&D. Might as well. These servers are completely open. Might as well take advantage of it, at least on an R&D run. Now, HQ is a little less enticing because she has ran R&D the last, 3 turns? So she already knows what 3 of the cards are in HQ. More than likely. 2 or 3 of them. Decides not to run HQ, and that seems to be the right call. Installs Devil Charm. Now, she's been maintaining her dominant mode for a while here. Which means she has been spending a credit each turn, but she's also getting a card draw each turn. It kind of balances out. 3 more installs from Sports Metal. An install in R&D and 2 in the server. What on earth are they doing with this server? They have plenty of cash. They've already used 2 Rashidas. Or maybe one was trashed, I'm not sure. Street Pedal popped to install Keiko. Run on HQ. What does Poemu do? You can install non-connection cards. Okay. Access is punitive from HQ. What? This Sports Metal deck runs punitive? Interesting. Okay. Kind of excited to see where this goes. Simulchip installed by Hoshiko. Kind of a weird card to see. I don't know what she uses that she would want that with. Another Hyperloop extension. It's kind of sad. Most of the time when I have Hyperloop extensions in hand, I'd much rather the runner steal them. Because I'd rather get the money for them stealing it and then also turn on Game Changer. But, I mean, I guess he's scoring them. He's got 2 points from them. Made the money back on them. Jinja's a Cedar? Adaptive Barrier on an already 4 ice deep server, so 5th ice makes Satyr have like, what? 7 strength? Hoshiko probably just isn't getting into this server. Like, ever. The runner forfeits, saying that they needed to go somewhere, but I do kind of wonder. I mean, I don't think this was looking very good for Hoshiko. She didn't have any of her breakers set up. I guess she didn't really need to. I think the real problem is Sports Meta was playing fast and loose, which I applaud, but they weren't scoring very high point agendas. And that makes sense because Sports Meta wants to run a lot of agendas. But I really wish we could have seen more of what Hoshiko's strategy was. Because if she had any way to pressure HQ or R&D, I mean, like, what does a Sports Metal deck do? They put all their upgrades over here, and all of their cards over here. So Hoshiko should just, like, say, okay, and then just run these 2 servers, right? What if they had a Stargate? They just Stargated the crap out of R&D. Unfortunately, we'll never get to know. Oh well. We'll jump into the next one. Okay, Lat versus Haas-Bioroid, Architects of Tomorrow. When you pass a piece of Bioroid ice, you can res another Bioroid ice at a 4 credit discount. We are on turn 5. We see a new console. The first time each turn an event is trashed from any location, draw 1 card. Strange. So, I think technically the wording on events is that they are trashed when played. So, this kind of reads the first time you play an event, draw a card, and also with the side effect that if technically your event is trashed from hand due to some kind of damage, you also draw a card. Seems bad. But this is like the first time I've seen it, so we'll have to see if this Lat deck makes good use of it. We also see Bookmark. That's interesting. Bookmark is kind of like Street Peddler, except not. You get to choose what's put on Bookmark. It's also a little slower because it costs a click to install, a click to host, and then either a click or you trash Bookmark to add it all back to your hand. Lat is drawing like mad. A border control is shown on this remote with a Jinja and an installed card with an advanced piece of ice. You have to assume that's an agenda. Corp probably feels very safe with this because even if the runner gets through this outermost piece of ice, they can just end the run with border control. Especially if Ngolo here has to convert the ice because it only works once per turn and it only lasts until the end of the encounter. So border control could put an end to those plans. Paper Trail was scored earlier. Not an agenda you see very often. And now an Architect Deployment Test was scored. It's kind of like the new... What was it called? Can't believe I've already forgotten. It was the old HB Agenda 3.2 that let you look at the top 3 cards, install any of them, and then trash the rest or something. Accelerated beta test? I think that's what it was. Anyway, so he does look at the top 5 cards, reveals a Fairchild, installs and reses it. Do you get to do that for free? It may install and res one of those cards, ignoring all costs. Yep. So he installs and reses a Fairchild for free. Lat, meanwhile, continues to add cards to Bookmark. Haas-Bioroid takes that opportunity to simply put a new card in Server 1, Ice Server 1, and Hedge Fund. Wait, did they get another click here? I'm a little confused. Oh, they Jinja'd. Okay, sorry. They Jinja'd an Ice in Server 1. Hedge Fund, installed a card, and then installed a Naked Remote. Lat advertises that he's not interested in contesting this by playing Peace in Our Time, adds another 3 cards to Bookmark. What on earth is going on here? He's setting up for something. He's very clearly setting up for a super turn. He has 30 credits. It is just a Rashida in the remote. So the Corp isn't threatening to score out anything right now. Lat is probably happy to see that. See another Jinja install on Ichi. Or with Ichi in Server 1. Triple advance on the... You're kidding me. They naked installed an agenda. A Hyperloop extension. Again, that's one of those cards that you're okay a lot of times with the runner stealing. Because you get the money from it, and it's only worth 1 point. However, scoring that does put HB on game point with any 2-point agenda and a 3-pointer. Lat, meanwhile, is drawing like mad with professional contacts. Trashes a bunch of... Oh. Okay. He's trashing out of the ashes. So what he's looking to do is some kind of super turn where he out of the ashes 6 times and then does some kind of interaction with Bookmark. Now, I'm not entirely certain what that interaction is going to be. I don't know if it's Apocalypse. I don't know if it's a Fear the Masses run. It probably isn't. So instead of waiting for the 6th out of the ashes, he goes ahead and initiates the strategy with the first 5 that he has. I literally don't understand that. How does the bookmark factor into all this? That's what I don't get. Now, Eli is res, but Palangi... Sorry, not Palangi. Angolo just converts that into a barrier. This has to be an Apocalypse run, right? So essentially the way Out of the Ashes works is, at the beginning of your turn, you can make a run, but then you remove it from the game. Now, what I don't understand is how Lat has 5 clicks. Oh, he has 5 clicks because of Beth Kilrain Chang. Anyway, so he Out of the Ashes HQ. Now he's Out of the Ashesing R&D. You have to assume at this point, HB must know what's going on. He uses Ngolo to break Fairchild, to run R&D. Sorry. Lat decides to go ahead and let Fairchild's first 2 subroutines fire, and he trashes Professional Contacts and Beth, probably knowing full well that he's gonna Apocalypse, so he doesn't need those cards anymore. He's now out of the Ashesing Archives, and now we have to assume the Apocalypse is gonna come out. This is a very neat deck. Wait. Oh, right. Okay, so he adds all of the cards that were on Bookmark into his hand for free by trashing Bookmark, clickless. Now he Apocalypses. He has all these cards in hand, so what's he going to do with this, though? He plays... Oh, that's ugly. Alright, he plays Encore, which lets him take... He plays 3 Encores, which lets him take 3 entire turns after this turn. He also plays Notoriety, gaining him an agenda point. Now, essentially, he has 3 more turns, 12 more clicks to do whatever he wants here. He plays Equivocation, and then Mobius. Equivocation, you can look at the top card of R&D, and you can force the corp to draw the card. Now, that's going to allow... Mobius is going to allow this to trigger twice. He decides not to allow the corp to draw a card because he sees an agenda. He steals it. Now, he Mobiuses, forces the corp to draw a card. Now he's just going to Mobius again. This is an ugly strategy, but I can see how it works. He's just Mobiusing, forcing the corp to draw cards, gaining those accesses when he wants them. So essentially, he's just filtering through R&D with this. Is that the third Mobius? Yeah, this is the third Mobius. He uses Out of the Ashes to check Archives. He uses Out of the Ashes to run R&D again. Essentially, through this interaction... Wow. That was brutal. Okay. There was a lot going on there, and I felt like partially that was just me gibbering about how amazing the interaction was. So let's go over this one more time. So Lat's whole strategy, as you see, was to diesel, make money by drawing through his deck, piecing in our time because he never planned on making a single run until the super turn anyway. And then what were his breakers? Having a hard time remembering. I think he had breakers. It was Angolo and Palangi. So he uses Out of the Ashes. 5 of them, in fact. Funnily enough, this probably means that this card here or this card here was the 6th Out of the Ashes, because you can put 6 of them in your deck. So he Out of the Ashes, HQ, R&D, and Archives for free. Has another click with Beth. Apocalypses, adds all those cards back to his hand because of Bookmark, and then plays 3 Encores, gaining essentially 12 clicks worth of turns, and plays Notoriety to gain a free agenda point. So he starts his next of 3 free turns by then immediately playing the equivocation, and the cards he kept in his hand was 3 Mobiuses. So he plays equivocation, and then he Mobiuses R&D 3 times. And that was what he did on turn 1. So essentially, equivocation allows him to filter a card on each run. So 3 Mobiuses times 2 is 6. So on the first turn, he filters 6 cards. On the second turn, he uses the remaining Out of the Ashes. Now, he did run on Archives, but theoretically he could have kept running on R&D. So he filters 2 more cards, so that's 8 cards, and then makes 4 honest runs to filter 4 more cards. So that's 12 cards. Am I doing my math wrong? I don't think so. 6 plus 2 is 8, plus 4 is 12. And then he would have had an entire another turn to run 4 more times on R&D and filter 4 more cards. So it guarantees that Lat gets to see, because 4, 12, 16. So it essentially allows Lat to access about 16 cards. On top of the fact that you've apocalypsed everything. On top of the fact that you've scored a free notoriety point. Wow. What does a corp do about that? Trying to think. Like literally, what do you do? Do you super ice R&D? Is that how it's done? You just build one super server and res all the ice in it? Like, he was trying to score out, and I can't say I blame him. I mean, he was there, but Lat knew he wasn't in any danger. Lat knew the corp wasn't going to win. These 5 points that Stronger Together has might as well have not even been there. Because Lat was never in any danger. He triggered the combo the turn he knew he needed to. Which was when potentially Haas-Bioroid could fast advance and win the game on the next turn. So you guys remember the old Hyperdriver combos? That's kind of why they removed Hyperdriver from the game. This reminds me of that. Is Lat even needed for this strategy? Why play Lat into this? All he does is get you a card draw. I mean, I guess maybe that is why. Ooh. Anyway, I think I'm going to end this episode here on that note, since that was quite a climatic finale. I will be right back, but it will be in the next video. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.